All right, everyone, welcome to part 2 of the video series on how to install a vinyl plank flooring in your home. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how to pick a direction for running your flooring and what to consider, the pros and cons. And the other part of this video will be showing you how to start your first row of your flooring. Now, you might think it's pretty simple, but it's actually one of the trickier tasks if certain situations pop up. So stay tuned and roll up those sleeves. Let's get it. The next big topic is which way do you run your flooring? What things should you consider? Well, what goes through my mind is you have light, first of all, to consider, which is if your main source of light is coming through, let's say, this window right here, it helps to run your flooring long ways so that it kind of blends in the seams between boards and disguises them. If you were to go this way, then they stand out a lot more. So it's a little something to think about. The next thing to think about is just overall what gives you the best flow or the best feel. So when we're looking at the situation here, we have a long room, so you're first inclined to say, oh, let's run it long ways. Well, maybe, but if you look over here, their existing hardwood floor is actually running that way. So it might be kind of nice to match that, so it's just not one more turn of direction and chaos going if you were to go perpendicular. If you go this way, it's a little easier on the eye. And not only that, if you were to stay with running that way, here in the kitchen, when you walk in from the entryway, it's very easy on the eye just to flow with the floor. So what we're going to decide today is to run it this way so that when we come in here, it's nice and easy. You don't see a bunch of cords going like this across. It's just nice and smooth. And then because it opens up to a big area right here, it can absorb the, what do you want to call it, cross pattern going this way. And along with that, by running it this way, you'll see we have a window right behind the cameraman, and that's going to give us light to help melt in or blend these seams. And you might think, oh, blending seams, it does make a big difference. Light will show your seams depending on the type of floor you use. Some have seams that are hard to detect, and others are very exaggerated, and that light just makes it that much worse. And I'll say one other thing to consider, which is also equally as important, is your installation method or your process. For us, I have a guy who's getting a lot better at installing flooring, but because I have some other things I have to do, I want to make sure he's doing okay. And so we're going to actually start from this back wall, which is nice and flat, and then work this way into the kitchen. And in the kitchen, there's many more obstacles to work around, and so we're going to save the harder part for the end. So if you can, it's nice to work from your longest, straightest edge so that you get a nice, easy foundation to work from, and then it's easier to work around these smaller parts. If you were just to start like from, let's say, right here or right there, it's going to create a lot more variables, and unless you're experienced, I wouldn't suggest that. So that's how we're going to get started on our direction of floor. Starting to install your laminate or vinyl flooring, it's very important that you find out what size board you start with. If you just start slamming in boards, what you'll find is that you might end up with a very tiny sliver at the end, and it's not easy to install, and most importantly, it's not easy to look at. It doesn't look nice. If you're doing tile, you want kind of an even symmetry, unless you're doing some crazy mosaic, right? So how you go about this is, the first step is measuring your total overall length. So we measured from this wall to that door or wall, and we got 25 feet and 11.5 inches total length. And what you want to do is convert that to inches. And so you times 25 feet by 12 inches, and that's 300 inches. And then you add your 11.5 inches to 300, and you get 311.5 inches total width. So once you have your total width, now you need to measure your board width. And you don't measure the tongue or the other tongue, the smaller tongue. You measure on top. And so what you do is you actually burn an inch, which means you start at the 1 instead of this metal part, because that will throw you off. Start at the 1 and put it right on the very edge and be as exact as possible. So here what we get is about 9 or 8, should I say, 8, 9, 10, and 11/16. We'll call it 11/16. It's actually a 32nd shy of that, and you want to be most accurate. And I know that if you err just a hair above, that's probably better, because when your floors go in, thicknesses get slightly more wider than narrower. So we're gonna say 8 and 11/16 is our board width. Now remember that you burned an inch. I have to stress that. Make sure if you start at the 1 and what you're reading is 9 and 11/16, well remember you gotta add 1 and it'll actually be, or subtract 1, it'll be 8 and 11/16. So once you have your board width, you need to convert it to decimal. So divide 11/16 and you get 8.6875. Now you have your board width, then you take your overall floor length, 311.5 inches, divide your board width, which is 8.6875 that we got over here, and what you get is the amount of boards that you're going to use. And you're probably wondering, well, what does that tell you? If it says you're going to use 35.856 boards, then this number is what is important. Your last board is going to be 0.856 that of a full board width. So to find out exactly what that equals, you take that and the decimal part and multiply it by the width of one board. So that tells us that our last board is going to be 7.4 inches. You could round up and say that's 7.5 inches, but what's most important to get out of that is that you're almost putting a full board at the very end, which is very nice. Now, let's say that you got 0.15. If this was 35.15, then you would take 0.15 times this number and you would get probably an inch left over, somewhere around there. And that would say, I wouldn't want to do anything less than, like, I would say 1.5 inches or 2 inches as my last board. So if that's the case, what you need to do is shave an inch off your first row board so that your whole pattern shifts this way and you gain an inch over there. So now you do the same exact method for your width-wise going this way, measuring on top and dividing per board, and then you get an idea of where to start and where you're going to be ending. All right, so you're excited to get your floor done before your wife comes home. But before you get started, to tell you that you can't just start your first row up against your wall, because no wall is perfectly straight. So what I do recommend, especially in a smaller room like this is 11 feet wide, is to go ahead and pre-cut the length of the boards that you need. In our case, we have 3 boards, and slide the boards that are pre-clipped together up to your wall. And what that's going to do is expose the unevenness of your wall, and what you're going to do is adjust for that using spacers. I like these spacers because they sit on top of the wood, not just behind the wood, and so they don't like move around much. And then once you put those spacers on though, that's not going to fix the problem completely, so you need to adjust for it using other spacers. You can use small shims and put those behind. Careful not to space it too much, or else your base molding is not going to cover the crack. So sometimes you don't want to use spacers or these ones, and you want to use something smaller so that you can adjust for your uneven wall. So once you have your spacers in place, as you see in our first row, we had a couple shims in here. Then go ahead and pre-assemble your second row, just like the first row, and have help clicking it in at one time, because if you go to tap in your next board piece by piece instead of by row, then it gives you a little more trouble because you're creating a wave. The pressure of tapping is going to constantly make a wave, and then you're chasing your tail sometimes. So pre-assemble your second row, have help clipping the whole row in together, Once you get 2 or 3 rows down, then it becomes easier just to go ahead and do the one board at a time method, or in small rooms, sometimes you might find it advantageous just to continue doing 1 row at a time with help and clipping them in. Alright folks, I hope after watching this now, you guys have a better idea on which way you should run your flooring. And one thing I failed to mention, that when you're installing your first row, it doesn't hurt to have someone standing on the boards as you click in the second and third rows to prevent them from moving a little bit. So also remember, not all flooring is the same. So if you install a different luxury vinyl plank flooring, it might clip in a little different, or it might be a little more rigid or less rigid. So keep that in mind, but Steady Eddie is always the winner. Do things nice and slow to make sure you have things clipped in. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Check out parts 3 and 4, and we'll see you at the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.